The Tuesday, July 12th school board meeting of Arlington School District is called to order. Keith, will you do the honors with leading us in the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Director Montrose?
Here.
Director Frank?
Here.
Director Apple? Director O'Brien? Director Huskar? Here. Director Simpson? Director Shriver? Director Bogliano? Here. Director Zalewski? Here.
Okay, so at the beginning of every one of our meetings, there's a period of time where we open it up for any comments. If anyone has any comments on something that is on the agenda for today. Does anyone have anything they want to speak to? Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
If
Motion
I
carries.
seconded it, I wasn't at that meeting because I had COVID. Did you, Rachel, did you call me the second?
No, Director
Somebody else?
Bogliano.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, the motion carries. John, I guess superintendent's report?
Yeah, we did meet in executive session before this meeting, and we did discuss
Personnel and potential litigation.
for the superintendent's report. We have a few updates. Just to cover a few things that are on the board agenda. The first thing that I wanted to cover that's on the board agenda is the adoption of new textbooks, which we do have several new textbooks up for adoption. The adoption of the textbooks are in family consumer science, math, social studies, and science. The new textbooks range everywhere from kindergarten through grade 12. And with the new textbook purchase, it enhances much of the digital access to textbooks, so students will have access to textbooks from home. We'll also have the opportunity to pull up the textbooks during classroom instruction. There are a variety of online instructional tools. There's also assessment tools that are built into each of the textbook purchases that we have, and then also provides professional development for our teachers. During our comprehensive plan, what we did was we put in a new curriculum review process that goes through all of our major curricular areas for every 6 years. So as we move through the process, we're able to take a look at the curriculum, review it, get feedback, and then make recommendations throughout the process of those 6 years. So within that comprehensive plan, we're achieving part of that goal by kickstarting a large portion of new textbook purchases to help have a positive impact on our curriculum. The purchasing of these materials total is about $450,000 for the whole series for all of those content areas. During our ESSER planning, which was the funding that we received from the government, we factored in, I believe, $800,000 for this type of purchase in the curriculum review cycle to help have an impact on learning loss, to direct that. We also have several old textbooks that are off to my right. The board will also, there's a motion this evening to either sell those textbooks, donate those textbooks, or recycle those textbooks. That's not the full list of them over there, but anything that would align with family consumer science, mathematics, social studies, and science. Naturally, we would wait until we have purchased and received, until we would take that action, and that's in the motion as well. We also have 3 special education staff members on the board agenda for approval. Each of these individuals, Stanley Manifold, Courtney Jones, and Madison Persinger, went through a rigorous interview process, 3-round interview process. First round is generally when we have a lot of candidates in place for each of the positions. The building principals and their team narrow it down to a smaller selective group, for which in this case, in many cases, for regular education teachers, it's a demonstration lesson. In this particular case, had to do with an analysis of IEP caseload, taking a look at individual students with special needs, and designing specific programs, being able to write up IEPs so that we have a very good understanding that they understand the legal aspect and can help design specific instruction for our children. So there's 3 great candidates that we're proud to have on the agenda tonight. We still have a vacancy at our elementary level for a school counselor, for which we are in the 2nd round of those interviews at the present time. We expect to have 3rd round interviews towards the end of next week, and should have a board recommendation in place for August for that position. Also on the agenda is a policy revision for School Board Policy 227. It will be titled Controlled Substances and Paraphernalia. It's used to replace what we currently have in place for the drug awareness policy. It contains recommendations issued to us by PSBA. Carleton School District is a member of PSBA, for which they provide us board recommendations as far as board policy and recommendations that we put into practice. So the language that's contained in this new policy is taken off of their recommendations. And the main change with this policy is it goes through and expands the drug testing capability that was previously not in our board policy before. In our board policy that we presently have, the only type of drug testing that we can utilize is a urine sample. Urine samples, a lot of work to go through and process those, a lot of time between when you get the sample and when you get the results back. So this policy allows for saliva test, breathalyzer, urinalysis, and then also blood testing. So we look to make administrative regulations to implement this policy. For the 2nd reading, I'll make sure that we have the regulations in place for review and inspection as well. And what we look to do is rely more heavily on the saliva test and the breathalyzer test, because you do get very quick results from those, and reserve the urinalysis or blood testing for emergency types of situations, or if there's a dispute over the results of a saliva test or of a breathalyzer, that we can rely on either one of those two to process the violation of the policy. We also have a change order to the Crafton Window project on the board agenda for this evening. We did meet in executive session for potential litigation. We did meet with contractors and our architect as well to make a recommendation for that change order. If you're familiar with the project, we're looking at replacing all the windows down at Crafton Elementary School. As a part of that, we're also taking a look at the masonry work and also the terracotta in the front of the building. The terracotta is where the change order comes in place. Change order that was provided to us was originally in the amount of $113,000 change order. So we met with the architect and the construction group this evening, and we'll have a new motion that brings that number down from $113,000 down to, I believe it's $96,000. Not somewhere in the neighborhood of $96,000 that we'll look to. The overall project, the reason for that change order was there was additional terracotta pieces on the front of the building that needed more attention to, that was not in the original scope of the project. So having both feedback from both of those individuals, we're very confident moving forward with making this recommendation for a change order. Last week was a busy week in Harrisburg. As many of you know, the state budgets are due by the end of June for education in particular. They delayed that. They did not meet the June 30th deadline. So it put us in a situation where as we go through and we design our budget, which, as you know, we passed at our last meeting, we get a significant amount of funding from the state for educational funding. So not having that information in place prior to approving our final budget can be a bit challenging. However, the appropriations bill came in. It's a very educationally strong budget. There have been historic increases to the funding that is being provided to education across Pennsylvania. So listed there are a few of the changes. $525 million increase in the basic education funding. That's across the state, obviously not just for Carleton. But the impact at Carleton, that'll be an additional $834 as far as an increase to our revenue coming from the state. There's a $225 million increase in Level Up funding. Level Up funding is designed for 100 schools across the state of Pennsylvania who are economically challenged. So that has not a direct impact on Carleton. We will not receive any additional fundings because we're not in that bottom tier of the 100 school districts across the state. There's a $100 million increase in special education funding. There we will also pick up additional funding of $85,737. There's $79 million increase for early childhood education, pre-K and Head Start, which has no direct impact on Carleton. And then there'll also be ready-to-learn block grants, specifically available to Carleton will be $189,030. Those are block grants we have to go through, we have to apply for, fill out the paperwork, but the money is set aside for us, provided that we go through and complete those block grants, meeting the criteria that's issued by the state. When Mr. Bealby went through and designed our budget, we used a local forecasting formula based off the information that we received from PASBO, which is a professional organization through the state that we're members of also, to kind of give us a forecast of what we should project into our local budget. I think Mr. Bealby did an outstanding job at hitting the targets. I think he was off by only $5,000 on the basic education funding, on the wrong side of things, but then on the other side with the special education, $25,000 difference, $21,000 difference there. So as far as the impact on our overall operating budget, not a big difference because we forecasted that there would be an increase in both the basic education funding and also in special education funding. So we hit it extremely close when you're looking at large numbers like that. So thank you, Mr. Bealby, for your work in developing that budget and not having us to go through and make major revisions to our operating budget.
So to be clear,
Yes.
on the budget we approved, the revenue assumptions, we assumed about 5,000 more than we're actually going to get on basic education, but special ed, we're getting $25,000 more than we assumed.
21.
So,
Yep.
okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So net, basically, our revenue is about 20,
It might go up about 15,000.
16,000,
Yeah.
okay, 15, 16,000.
Yeah.
Revenue's a little higher, okay.
Yep.
Dr. Kreider, can you give us the headlines on the Ready to Learn block grant? What are those specifically to be used for?
I'll get more information. There's a lot of things coming through. A lot came through with this appropriations bill, and yes, I can shoot out the types of what all qualifies for the Ready to Learn block grants. I know there were additional fundings of, and I have that on the next page also. There was $100,000 in school safety that the district has access to, and then also another $100,000 for mental health that we would have access to. But I need to double check exactly what the Ready to Learn block grants are allocated for.
They're generalized. We can pretty much use it for anything that has to do with increasing, like social work is a big part of the Ready to Learn grant. Programming for the kids. I know that like Edmentum is one of our Ready to Learn programs. And we also pay for the salaries of our librarians and I believe, I can't remember what the other, might be one of our social workers. Yeah, one of our social workers. So it's generalized, but we try to focus it more towards the social and social work and for student advancement programs.
So does that 189,000 represent an increase for us?
No,
Essentially,
we basically,
Oh,
we get the Ready to Learn pretty much every single year. They don't guarantee it to us every year, but we do get it every year. So it's not one that's unfamiliar. The one that Dr. Kreider's talking about that's coming up on the next screen, the extra $100,000 that they gave us for safety and the $100,000 that they gave us for the social work. That was an additional, that they gave every school $200,000, and then they ramped it up a little bit based on our funding source. So we got a little bit more than $100,000 for each of those programs. But those are more structured on exactly what we have to do. There's criteria, there's tiers, 3 tiers for each one of the different objects. So if we decide to put cameras in for the security, the first tier has to be met, which says that, all the dead space has to be covered. If we have that, then we can go on to tier 2. But what I want you to do is make sure that everyone has tier 1 covered on both of these grants, and then we can move forward with that. So there's a guideline, but there's a lot of leeway of how we can spend it. So, with this is totally brand new to all of us, so this will be something that, we're gonna have to do it quick, because we have to have it approved by the end of August, so we'll be going through that in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Yeah, and next one also, sweeping change, school code generally does not get amended to this level. So there were a lot of changes in the school code. These are just some notable provisions, but there are many, many more that go into the school code as well, as far as changes that they have as far as revisions. I'm sure Andrews and Price is searching through them and will be giving us a brief in the upcoming week or so. But there are some with deadlines that require us to put out surveys to particular portions beginning August 1st, and we'll get those surveys. And then there's some aspects of the school code that change that don't go in effect until the 2023-2024 school year. So some of those there, pathway to graduation. There were some other pathways that were listed through Act 158, which allows students to graduate from high school meeting certain criteria. They added an additional pathway with composite keystone scores, changed a little bit of the values around there. There's an extension for compliance with continuing education. That more has to do with our educators and our paraeducators meeting their requirements to continue their education over a 5-year period. It was extended for a year. It eases restrictions on out-of-state teaching certifications. Recently, across the state of Pennsylvania, it's been a challenge to find certified teachers. What this does is it puts in provisions where Pennsylvania has always been very stringent on accepting out-of-state certifications. This loosens the restrictions a little bit. It has some language in there where the individual, if they're national board certified, that helps get you certified in Pennsylvania. If you have 5 years of teaching experience in and out of state, that helps you get your Pennsylvania teaching certification as well. So the goal there was to help bring more teachers into the state, especially in areas where they're having trouble filling positions. There are enrollment provisions for special education students that go back to the 2021-2022 school year. So special education students who turn 21 during that school year will have the availability to extend educational services through districts this school year as well. New training requirements for safety coordinators. As I mentioned, you have the $100,000 grants that will go towards school safety and then also mental health needs. The code also abolishes the Wolf administration's proposed charter school regulations, which was a big piece of the Wolf administration. So there's a lot of give and take on both sides here to get this thing finally through. And then provisions to the Educational Improvement Tax Opportunity Scholarship Tax Credit. That has to do with low-performing school districts. They actually increased quite a bit of funding for students within school districts who would like to attend private organizations if they are enrolled in a low-achieving school district. So again, those are some of the notable provisions. There are many more that we will definitely need to sift through and make sure that we're complying with. Like I said, some have starting dates very soon, and then others have starting dates in the 23-24 school year as well. So as that information comes out, and as Andrews and Price processes all that information for us and gives us the recommendations on that, we'll get more information out to the board and to the public.
John, I have a question about abolishing the charter school regulations.
Mm-hmm.
I assume that's going to hurt us, right?
I think what the Wolf administration had in place was very educational friendly to help school districts manage the cost for charter schools. So you're right, that was a concession on the Wolf administration to get some of these other things through and to get both sides to get this through. So right, that's not the educational friendly part of.
So how much is this gonna hurt us?
It doesn't change anything that's currently in place. It just doesn't put any of his proposed regulations into the school code.
Okay, so none of the regulation changes have started yet, so we're at stage one.
As far as I understand.
Okay.
Yes, basically everything stays the same.
Stays the same. So it's
Same-
no
same
worse.
funding,
No
nothing
worse.
different.
No worse.
Right.
Right, because what Governor Wolf wanted, he wanted to set a certain tuition rate for
It was
the
like
charter
$9,000.
schools, $9,000 or, but that didn't go through. So none of his reform that he wanted and that the school districts wanted were not accepted. So we're basically status quo with charter schools.
Status quo.
Any other questions?
So committee.
Mr. President, that completes my,
Okay, we're on the committee reports. George, do you have a Pathfinder update?
That was the 2 weeks that I had COVID, so I didn't
Okay.
attend. And Susie, you couldn't
I
either.
wasn't.
Okay.
Okay, I know Joe's not here for Parkway West.
There hasn't been anything
Nothing?
since I reported at the last meeting,
Okay.
and Shasta as well. I
Okay.
do not have any other updates.
And Chris is not here, that's legislative and PSBA, I don't know if there's, so, okay.
PSB updates would probably be a lot of what I
Okay.
covered here within the legislation.
Okay, then we can go ahead and move on to the voting portion of this. So, under miscellaneous, I'll entertain a motion to approve 4.1 to 4.3 as presented, and also 4.4, the Crafton Elementary project. Instead of as it's presented, so a motion to approve change order, the change order for Crafton Elementary School upgrades project in the amount of $96,479.31, pending updates that the architect is going to provide with supporting documentation underlying that, the updated change order total. Do I have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. I will entertain a motion to approve, under finance, I'll entertain a motion to approve items 5.1 through 5.3 as presented. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Under personnel, I'll entertain a motion to approve 6.1 through 6.9 as presented.
So
Do I have a
moved.
motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Under policy services, I'll entertain a motion to approve 7.1 as presented. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Under student activities, I'll entertain a motion to approve 8.1 as presented. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. So old business, is there anyone on the board that wants to address anything old business? New business? Okay, so open forum, so at this point we'll open it up to everyone else and just, go ahead, Reese.
Okay, hello everyone, I'm Reese Smith. So I have a question about the drug testing policy. does that compel students to submit to these particular types of drug tests, or just makes it an option that the school has?
It makes them an option. So
Okay.
they can refuse, and then in the administrative regulations, and what's currently in our administrative regulations right now, if a student opts not to participate in the drug testing, then it's considered to be a violation of the policy. So they move through the consequence component of it. So,
Okay.
yeah, you're not forced, you're offered, if you refuse it, same thing as getting a positive result.
Okay. And then I have a question about the adoption of new textbooks. So basically, what's the process for like identifying new textbooks to like purchase? Because I mean, like there are different textbooks on the same subject. What's the procedure the school goes through to determine which ones they want to purchase?
Yeah, so Dr. Manish went through a pretty complete, comprehensive review of how he did that at the last meeting or the meeting before. But basically, it's a committee that gets together first. He goes through, he researches the different textbooks that are available in each of the content areas that we're looking at. He identifies whether or not they're research-based, identifies whether or not they meet the Common Core standards of Pennsylvania, to make sure that they align with what we need to teach. Then assembles a committee of teachers together and administrators to go through and review a variety of textbooks. In some cases, what they'll do is they'll pilot certain lessons from those textbooks as well, work with them in the classroom with the students. Committee meets, in general, it's a process of at least 12 months that they go through, revisit, come back, rehash.
Okay, this has been in the works for a while.
Correct.
Okay, and about how big is the committee?
It depends on, so for example, for the math textbooks, I think pretty much every math teacher participated. For elementary, we had at least one representative from each grade level, K through 6, along with building principals. So there it gives a good cross-section to make sure that the books are going to be ones that align with what we do.
Okay, and and so in the you said Dr. Mantis discussed this at the last meeting as well, so this was also talked about at the board meeting before.
That's correct.
Cool.
Yep.
And then regarding the budget and the funding from the state government, and so those estimated gains that were like 370,000 and 86,000, those were estimated gains from the previous year's allocated amount, right?
They were the actual gains from previous year, correct?
Okay. And then when we made the budget for this year, we budgeted increases in. Okay. Just wanted to make sure I understood that properly. Okay, thank you. That's it.
Anyone else? Okay, then I'll propose a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, Director Frank. Good job.